Hello, how are you? I hope you're good. Today I have a fun, almost rapid fire recommendations video, and it's all based on your oddly specific requests. I went on Instagram and asked you for some specific vibes, tropes, feelings, atmosphere, in case I can give you a book that I think personally fits what you're looking for. As I said, this is going to be a little bit like rapid fire because I am bringing you 50. Granted, a couple overlap and appear a few times, but there are a lot of different ones. Hello if you're new. Thank you for stopping by. I hope you will enjoy this, and let's go. First, we have unique sci-fi short stories that feel like magic. I'm not quite sure that this really counts as sci-fi. It probably doesn't, but it is speculative, and I would argue that could fall into that. And that is Some 40 Tales from the Afterlives. I thoroughly enjoyed it, would highly recommend it. It's super short as well. A book that makes you ugly cry. There's only a couple of things that make me ugly cry in books, and one of them definitely appeared in Assassin's Apprentice. In fact, you can actually watch me ugly cry in the vlog I'll link down below, but this. For a book with healers, I'm gonna go with Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson. It's a very massive world and healing is somewhat of a theme, but according to Logan, that one fits a lot. A sci-fi comic, but that is specifically already finished, and for that I am absolutely going to recommend The Sender. It consists of 6 volumes and all are readily available. The artwork is beautiful, it's definitely a sci-fi, an easy to read epic fantasy that is also funny. I might be stretching it for the high epic fantasy category, but it's definitely easy to read and it was definitely funny back when I read it. According to my 2017 self, and that is Lightning Struck Hard by TJ Klune. I feel like not a lot of people talk about this book and it gets forgotten. It gets forgotten. Is that English? Logan. Oh, okay. It gets forgotten a lot. I just remember vividly walking from work and really laughing out loud in the street. Everyone looking at me a bit crazy. Speaking about stretches, the next one is a dark academia set in Ireland. I'm gonna go and recommend The Call, which listen, it's dark and it is set in a boarding school. And I'm gonna go and qualify this, but I don't think that anyone would really class this as a dark academia in a normal sense, but it is a very specific prompt that I kind of struggled to find an answer, but I really wanted to include. And I think that this very, very dark, and especially for a YA book, it's fantasy dystopia that is set in the future and not Hunger Games, I presume, or Divergent. I'm gonna go with Scythe. It deals a lot of death themes and who's going to play God. It definitely is set in the future. Next we have Spooky But Not Scary, and to me that was definitely Mexican Gothic. It's technically a horror book, but I really wouldn't say that it is a scary one. Definitely thought that this had some spooky moments, but at no point was I struggling to go to sleep or read this in the dark. A lyrical book that every line makes you stop and think. I think a lot of people would recommend this book. I personally really did not enjoy it, but that doesn't mean that I'm right. And I do think that it definitely has that type of writing that is very lyrical, very much inviting and atmospheric, and that is Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern. A book where forced proximity leads to feelings. I have a perfect one for you, and that is Flatshare. This is 2 people forced to share a room and barely seeing each other, but connecting regardless. We have a request for a book with the found family. However, one of them is quite hated, and I think Atlas 6 fits that pretty perfectly. Sometimes even more people are hated, but there's definitely one that stands out. An extremely popular request for a fantasy with no romance, and for that I think The Lies of Locke Lamora would fit really well. There is a mention of a love interest, but it really stays just that, a mention, and that's about it a couple of times, and that's it. A wholesome book with elder characters. It has to be A Man Called Ove. Extremely wholesome, can also make you ugly cry at the end, so it could also fit that. Very beloved overall, I think, as well. A book that will keep you guessing. I think that probably would qualify a lot of murder mysteries, but we're gonna go with In My Dreams I Hold a Knife. We have quite a few culprits that could be the killer of their former friend, and it keeps you guessing. A book that has amazing female friendships. And you know what? I was going through my read list and this was surprisingly much harder than it should have been. I hope there's more books and stories that feature that. There's a lot of male friendships and there's a lot of friendships where a female is a friend to a male. But anyway, we do have Rat Queens that definitely excels in this category. It is a graphic novel, or it's a comic, but if you are okay with those, I would highly recommend. It's very humorous as well. A request for a book that feels wistful and bittersweet. And of course, The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue would fit here as well. It's definitely both wistful and bittersweet. Kind of dreamy, but also a bit tragic, a little bit dramatic, a little bit lyrical. That kind of vibe. Makes you cringe and shiver, but in a good way. Both the anime and the manga, because they are fairly similar. Full Metal Alchemist, there are some scenes that I really, like, you know, they do send a shiver down your spine. Cringe-worthy moments, but in a good way. The next one is actually really difficult because you asked for something similar to the TV show Dark, and I don't know if there is anything as good as the TV show Dark, which, by the way, great taste. Without going and recommending Dark Matter, which technically I am just by saying it, but another show, if you would like a show recommendation, but also can be taken in as a manga, so technically a book, is Steins Gate, one of our favorite animes. I've not read a manga, so I don't know how close it is, but I think the show actually came before the manga, so it should be fairly close. The best Brandon Sanderson book to start with if you mainly read young adult fantasy, I think it is his sci-fi young adult. It's very, very easy to read, which a lot of his adult ones are also, but I think it is a good way to. But if you do want to go into adult, but you have primarily read YA, I definitely think that Mistborn series is definitely the one to get to. Murder and Mayhem in a Library, another one that is very beloved and I think people really, really enjoy. I personally didn't, but again, that doesn't mean that I'm right. It's Sorcery of Thorns. Not only do we have a library and fighting, we also have a cat, so you know, a lot of appeal to it. A retelling of King Arthur. I personally have not read this, but I do know it is a retelling, and that is Legendborn. Also considered a dark academia to beat, I think, so just a lot of bells and whistles. I'm excited to see what I think of it. This one's very relatable. A book that makes you forget your problems. To me, that is To Be Thought If Fortunate. It does it in a very unique way where you just can take a breath and travel away from your body and just enjoy the pure intent that this book has. I just really liked it. It's super short as well. Take a little break from reality. I feel like that is a very beautiful choice. And you didn't think that I'm actually gonna go through the whole list without mentioning Dark Matter. So this is a book for time travel where they meet past, future self, or family. A lot of it is living through the past self, future self, but there are moments where they meet other. I'm not gonna say much. Read it, it's very good. A book where someone is obsessed with tea. I didn't want to go with the Tea Dragon Society, but that could be an option. But the thing that sprung to my mind was the Avatar, because I cannot not mention it. Mainly obviously talking about Uncle Iroh here, my absolute favorite person ever. There is mainly the show, but also there are quite a few comic collections out there and also Kyoshi books. So, you know, there's choices. Has an animal companion. The best animal companion by far that I have read about is definitely in the Bone Shard Daughter book. It actually has a decent amount of page action in general. It's not just mentioned once, which I feel like a lot of the time we have that with animal companions, and it's adorable. A cute cat break. Hey buddy, how are you doing? A book where music is a very big part of the story. I will absolutely pitch The Name of the Wind. Music is a massive, massive part of the story, and it gets brought up quite a lot, and it's quite emotional, and is just beautiful. A cozy found family with all of the emotions. I think The House in the Cerulean Sea really, really fits this prompt. It is absolutely cozy as well. I think this is the second one that I've not personally read, but it's a book with a boarding school setting. I did have some other options in my mind, but I don't actually want to recommend them because none of them were really spectacular. I do know that Truly Devious is also in a boarding school, and it is very beloved. I can't vouch for it personally, but I will put it here tentatively. A book with or about mental illness. For a YA contemporary, I'm going to go with Eliza and Her Monsters. I really enjoyed reading about the story, and we have anxiety and depression here describes quite well. Similarly, Turtles All the Way Down, a beautiful example of OCD. And for an adult nonfiction, I'm going to go with Maybe You Should Talk with Someone or To Someone, I can't remember. It's an account from a counselor themselves, talking about a couple of different cases and walking us through that, and it was quite insightful in parts. A fairy tale retelling with a beautiful writing. Another case of wasn't my favorite, but a lot of those are due to the beautiful writing. Lyrical writing is very difficult for me to enjoy. I am very picky with it. But I do know that this is beloved by a lot of people, and I do think that it is a retelling. I just don't know if it's a fairy tale or a myth. And it's The Daughter of the Moon Goddess. A slow burn romance. I don't know if this is the slowest burn romance. All I'm gonna say is that I enjoyed the burn, and it definitely wasn't the quickest in resolution. Get a Life, Chloe Brown, and it also has Chronic Pain rep in here as well. A book with a grumpy or hesitant mentor. For that, I'm gonna go with The Poppy War. It is also a mentor that is very eccentric, as we normally have that as well. That's also a case in The Name of the Wind. I do think that the part with the boarding school in Poppy War is superior, in my humble opinion. And the mentor was a big part of why. Okay, I love this one, and I think I nailed it, in, again, my humble opinion, but it has the feeling of a action spy movie, but in a more down-to-earth and cute way. And I'm gonna go with Anxious People, because it is this type of like action-packed, thrillery, something happens, something has to be hidden, but then it is brought down to earth in such a beautiful way, and it explores humans in their flawed and beautifully imperfect ways. A best friend's brother romance. Very specific indeed, but I do have one for you, and it's in A Holidays. I really had a good time with it. Book similar to Becky Chamber ones. This one is a hard one. There are a couple, but nothing obviously quite compares. I'm gonna go with one that's probably a little bit strange, but We Are Legion from Bobbyverse. And the similarities to me is the silence of it all. It's something that's happening in space. It's a very bizarre situation to be in. It's very unusual for us readers, but we are having enough time to sit silent with our thoughts and kind of think of the past, and I think that's where I'm getting it from. The Bobbyverse is definitely more humorous. Don't see anyone talk about it, and it is an odd one, and I probably want to reread it soon as well, but there you go. That feeling of discovering a whole new magical world, and I do know they meant it in a probably more exciting way. To me, this world stood out and felt really real, and that is why I thought of it first, because it felt like you are going into a very established world and are discovering it, and that is the 5th season. An enemies to lovers romance, but through a competition or a trial. Another one that fits perfectly, I believe, is The Night Circus. See, I actually gave this a whole 5 stars, and it definitely fits your boxes. A lady murdering her toxic husband. I'll give you one better. The whole apothecary dedicated for such ladies, and it is called The Lost Apothecary. This one was a funny one, but just a book on my TBR, so I will also link my May's TBR video, but I'm gonna say Pines by Blake Crouch. Has suspense and plot twists. This one was really hard to put down, and I do think it is a definite page turner. A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. A fantasy with a lesbian main character, and for that I'm going to say Girls of Paper and Fire. Book that focuses on a friendship that is more platonic. I can't remember for sure if there was not a romantic focus as well, but there is definitely a lot of friendship aspects, and that was the reason that I really enjoyed this book for, and that is Radio Silence. A fantasy adventure, if you like the kind of D&D adventure vibes with a lot of humor, it's Kings of the Wild. Something that takes place in a hallucination or has similar vibes to that. And I think I have a perfect one for you once again, and it is called The Wicker King. It has this really cool effect when it starts with light pages and goes into dark pages as the story progresses and darkens. I like this next one, and it was quite unexpected, but someone asked for a Lithuanian classic. And I definitely have a favorite, and it's called Dievų miškas, which translates to the Forest of the Gods. I do know that there is an English translation, but I don't know if it's available anywhere. It is an ironic memoir from the concentration camp, and it was done so beautifully with this dark humor, and you laugh and you cry, and you laugh because you're crying, and you're crying because you're laughing. It was a whole trip, and I think it was very masterfully done. A book that has to do with people destroying Earth, especially with like climate change. This is another one that I've not read, but I really want to, and it is called Dawn by Octavia Butler. I've read her other book, and this one I believe is set after they do the deed, but is definitely still dealing with the outfall from that. A page turner that is long, I'm going to say Skyward again. This is normally can only hold your attention for that long, but I do think that it is very action-packed and is easy to read, and those are the two things. And there is some like mystery, so these are the elements that would make a book intriguing for me, so hopefully that works for you as well. A story that has both a plot and romance, and I'm actually gonna go with Saga. It's like a space Romeo and Juliet, very dramatic, but it's also humorous as well. And the last one, I think fittingly as well, a recommendation for a strong atmosphere, and I am once again going to say The Name of the Wind because I just feel like it's right to end on that note. It is high time I reread this myself, but definitely atmospheric, one of the rare lyrical books that I really like. It is filled with atmosphere, and as we established, themes of music is just overall great, is what I think. That's it. That's the 50 recommendations for you guys. I will hopefully edit this down to not be extremely long. You know, if you will be picking anything up from the list, or if you have a recommendation of your own, I would love to know. Thank you to my Patreons for supporting me in this YouTube venture. I appreciate you so very much. Stay awesome, stay kind, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!